The saying, "before you embark on a journey of revenge, dig 2 graves," that's attributed to Confucius, which is exactly the theme of the new Spanish Netflix limited series, 2 Graves, or DosTumbas. Let's get up the shovels and dig in! I just couldn't resist. Come on. 2 years after the disappearance of Verónica and Marta, the investigation is declared closed due to a lack of evidence and suspects. The grandmother of one of the girls has nothing to lose, and she decides to carry out an investigation beyond the law. She'll do whatever it takes to uncover the truth about what happened that night, and then what begins as a search for a culprit soon becomes a story of revenge. Now, when I say this is short, I'm not kidding. It's 3 episodes that are each about 45-ish minutes, so it won't take long to binge at all. And just like the synopsis stated, we follow a grandma who is fed up with the lack of progress on her granddaughter's missing person case and then decides to take matters into her own hands. Now, you may have heard the phrase, "the most dangerous person is someone with nothing left to lose." That is exactly what and who Isabel, the grandma, is. She comes across as mild-mannered and quiet, but she's very outspoken once pushed, and then eventually finds herself in situations she didn't intend, but now must deal with. Alvaro Mortes also stars in this, and you'll most likely recognize him from his seasons on Money Heist as El Profesor. Now here, while he is an important figure within the story and its escalation, he does sit in the background for quite a bit. And because this is such a short series, the mystery, it isn't overly complex or twisty, even though there are still several surprises within the plot. One story element was shown right at the start of the show, and I wish it hadn't begun this way because it removes an element of shock. But outside of that, over the course of the story, there are 3, maybe 4 big reveals, and one of which I certainly did not see coming. So that was a good surprise. And to go along with those revelations, the storytelling is fairly gritty, and it doesn't shy away from some brutality. I mean, it's not abundant and overused, but the violence we get is abrupt and cruel, and then very effective. Something that was kind of a bummer within the plot is that once we reach about the halfway point into the final episode, it is very clear what the trajectory is going to be, so once we get to that conclusion, there's nothing jolting or unexpected. The story concludes right where it's shown to be going. Now, I would have preferred a more twisty conclusion, one that fell in line with some of the other stunning moments, where we think the story's heading one way and then it rips the floor right out from under us and gives us something completely different. The acting is believable and engaging, driven confidently by Kitty Manver, who plays Isabel. Now, she convincingly delivers passionate outrage and some righteous fury, and although at times she can come across as cold or distant to her family, she's somebody that you would want searching for you if you were to disappear. And there's also this level of frustration or maybe impatience that she portrays. It's extremely relatable. And it's not just with the police and their lack of progress, but with others who are delaying her from finishing up some urgent task. Now, she's feisty and scrappy, which is also needed once she begins to confront and deal with Mortes Salazar. And despite him having much less screen time, he is kind of still a formidable figure within the plot. And he's somewhat mysterious, but not so much that we can't decipher who or what he is. And in that sense, he's a fairly generic character with a pretty standard character assignment. His portion of the narrative, it isn't surprising, even thrilling, and that's mainly because of the lack of screen time and then development that we receive for him. Mysterious and sketchy are fine traits for a character, but when there isn't any further complexity to them, they're very basic and just standard fare for a thriller or mystery genre. That also goes for Hovik Kuchkarian, I think that's how you pronounce it. He plays the missing girl's father. Now, we can see that he's mournful and doing his best to cope, especially with still having another teenage daughter at home who needs his care and attention. But the character is written in a way that he's kind of a bump on a log, barely involved in the story, other than to be a semi-annoyance to his mom, who is the one grinding everybody in order to solve the case. And I don't believe the lack of engagement that comes from some of these characters is the fault of the actors. It's the material, or really the lack of, that's causing the shortcomings. Outside of Isabel, everybody else is a supporting member, but not involved enough to be a hugely important story driver. The theme of the plot's intriguing, and while it has been used before in other films and series, the examination of at what point does somebody become just as monstrous as the one they're pursuing gets a bit lost. This had the opportunity to really delve into that idea and then create some decent conflict and discussions within the dialogue. But what we're given, it's shallow and brief, barely scratching the surface of what was available, especially given Isabel's remaining familial context. So really, what this boils down to is we're given a quick and concise mystery, with a central focus on a resolute and tenacious grandma as she does just about anything necessary to figure out what happened to her missing granddaughter. The brevity of the storytelling creates gaps in character development and engagement, leading to humdrum personas and then an obvious conclusion. The show does manage to offer some surprises, and the concept is a thrilling one. But the thin exploration of the central theme wastes both the actors and the audience's time by presenting an average and unremarkable product. There's sex, some nudity, a ton of profanity, and then some brutal violence. I give 2 graves 2.5 out of 5 couches. This had a lot of potential, and it's not horrible, but it also could have been so much better. All right, what's a revenge film or maybe a show that you really enjoyed? One that I came across in the last year or so that shook me was I Saw the Devil from 2010. Let me know some of those that you love, though, in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.